Thank you so much. I'll be presenting my research idea, and the topic is living near Uganda's Queen Elizabeth National Park, evaluating the alternative livelihoods or alternative livelihood initiatives around protected areas or around Queen Elizabeth National Park. My presentation will look at or cover the introduction, give you a country situational analysis, look at the research framework that is guiding my study, share with you the objectives, methods, and expected outcomes. Protected areas globally have faced persistent anthropogenic disturbances, and these have really led to habitat loss, habitat fragmentation around most of these protected areas. And governments and conservation agencies internationally, nationally, have always thought it best to put the interests of communities at the center of conservation. And this has been really a developing concept that has really evolved over years, where we have shifted from protectionist approach to really integrating communities into conservation. And so alternative livelihoods have really been used as a strategy to support these conservation efforts, making sure that they balance development and balance conservation. In 2012, IUCN embarked on or asked a group of people to really look into are these alternative livelihoods working? And a number of scholars have done some work to assess if alternative livelihoods have contributed to conservation approaches. And so there has been a number of studies that have tried to look at what has worked and what has not worked. And in areas of aquatic sectors, there have been studies on looking at enabling conditions that have helped these projects work, and if they have been able to be used sustainably in some of these communities. And the studies have indicated that establishing alternative livelihoods and sustainability of these livelihoods really takes some time. USAID has supported a lot of activities or a lot of projects in this area, and the project that takes like 3 years, 4 years, you cannot measure whether it has really been effective in a way. And so there has to be important conditions in place to make this work. So my study looks at, I'm interested to look at some of these conditions. What has really made these projects work? What has made them fail in communities that surround these protected areas? Just giving a bit of background on also on alternative livelihoods in Uganda. Integrated conservation development projects started in the 1990s in Uganda. While it is a concept that had really worked in some areas, in some countries globally, in Uganda, it could not start until the 1990s because we had like civil strife from 1980 to 1986. So 1986 to the 1990 were sort of like in recovery mode. Our policies were not the best. And so when this project started, they started in one of, is there someone, are they able to see? So in Uganda, they started in what we call the Bindi Impenetrable National Park. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so in Uganda, most of these projects started in Bindi Impenetrable National Park because that's where we have the mountain corridors. So all the projects were going into that direction. And they had different like packets or tactics to use or approaches to use in implementing these projects. They promoted like revenue sharing, like sharing for those communities that really had good tourism income. They promoted sharing revenue, and also they promoted collaborative forest management for communities to be able to get into the forest and use some of the resources. And also for those, and then in the other communities, they promoted like alternative livelihoods. What can give them like livestock, give them, promote tree planting, some of the alternatives that communities would benefit from so that they improve their incomes or their household livelihoods. Then, so from then, from 1993, when this really was implemented in this area, the programs then expanded to the other parts of the country, and CFM and community development programs spread to the other parts of the country. And also to support this, the legal framework also started improving. So the country started reviewing the legal framework. We started putting the wildlife policy, the wildlife act in place, the Environmental Act in place, and most of these were related to poverty and poverty eradication and protected area conservation. And so when we had the laws in place, and they started, because when the project started in 1990, they started revenue sharing, but there was no proper policy to guide how the resources are supposed to be shared, how effective this can be. And so we had sort of like some drawbacks or setbacks. And in 2000, they had to put in place like community conservation policy, where they really put how should the communities work, how should we involve the communities, and how should government get involved. So I can say that the country now has really worked hard to put sufficient legal framework in place to support conservation and development. So those are some of the alternative livelihoods around communities or in communities that surround these protected areas. I got these photos from Bindi, the Bindi communities that really have been into these livelihood projects. They've been like the success story around livelihoods in Uganda. Even other parks have tried, but if I was to look at what has worked and had areas where it has not, where it has been really like a success story, Bindi Impenetrable National Park and the community surrounding this park have really done a great job. So, Sorry. So my interest is looking at alternative livelihoods. And so what are these alternative livelihoods? These are projects that are widely, as I say, that a widely used term for interventions that aim to reduce the prevalence of activities deemed to be environmentally damaging by substituting them with lower impact livelihood activities that provide at least the equivalent benefits. And also, one of really my interests, the enabling conditions. And these are defined as conditions that facilitate approaches to an intended change in addressing social and ecological challenges. And my study is going to be based on this theoretical framework, sustainable livelihoods. This was really a framework that has been used greatly by different development agencies, by different development partners on assessing poverty and development and conservation. So different agencies have changed it or have adopted it to suit their working conditions and what are their goals for the different projects that they have. So the sustainable livelihood framework really is based on what I would call natural or livelihood assets. And this covers really at what conditions are within the community, within people, both social, human, natural, financial, and physical. For any successful project to really take place, these have to be in place. And they influence what, then we have policies and institution processes that are also really like facilitate, like the mechanism, and they are across the different levels. So the transforming processes really will cut across all levels of this framework. And they are certainly in place to make sure that they work with the, deal with the shocks and trends that impact or influence the livelihood assets so that they are able to work. So they are enablers, they're like enablers for these livelihood assets to work. And if we have all this in place, then we have strategies. If we have all these assets and transforming structures, processes in place, then we have livelihoods that, livelihood strategies. These are activities that so these are activities, livelihood activities that are put in place or implemented to improve the livelihood outcomes. And so for me, looking at this framework, I'm more interested on looking at the enabling conditions at all levels. So both from the livelihood assets, the transforming processes, the strategies, what makes these projects work? Or what are the gaps? What makes it not work? So that's really like my area of focus on this framework. So from this framework, I have picked So from this framework, I have looked at, as I said, I want to look at more of the enabling conditions. And I'm looking at, we have donor agencies, we have NGOs, we have protected areas, managers or authorities who are in charge. Then we have communities. And these donor agencies do support conservation livelihoods around these protected areas. And so what are the enabling conditions that make these projects work? And I have then asked different questions, and then how does this improve if we have good conditions and in place and projects are implemented, and communities' livelihoods improve, does this improve the community perceptions towards conservation or towards more sustainable use of natural resources and development as a whole? So I have some assumptions under this, that the success of projects really depends on enabling conditions, and that community livelihoods will lead to improved community perceptions. This has been modified from BSID theory of change that they used in 2018 to really evaluate most of their projects in different parts of the world. So my objectives will, one, evaluate the enabling conditions for alternative livelihood projects in communities around Queen Elizabeth National Park. Then I will assess community and external actors' perceptions of these enabling conditions for alternative livelihood projects around the park, and then also assess governance structures and systems on alternative livelihoods around the park. So my study area is in Uganda. If you have not been to East Africa or to Africa, Uganda is the eastern part of Africa, and so my study will then be in the western parts of the country. And I can say that my study area is within the what we call the Albertine Rift Valley, which is really like a very high biodiverse area in the country. And obviously there are different pressures that face these communities, population growth. We have different developments that are taking place in these communities. And so working with communities to make sure that they put in more effort in conserving resources is really important. As I said already, that Queen Elizabeth National Park is in the western part of the country and covers 1,978 kilometers square. It comprises of a wide range of ecosystems, some deciduous tropical high forests, undulating savanna grasslands, acacia, savannas and wetlands, high diversity of mammals, birds. We have like more than 600 species of birds in Queen Elizabeth National Park, but the resource is under pressure because of the growing population, both inside and outside the park. Inside the park, we have like 11 fishing enclaves. These are villages. But these are big villages, like they've been expanding and expanding. And among the issues, they have like brought-in livestock. So they have cattle, they have goats, and obviously lions are a big, like issue. And in retaliation, our lions are being poisoned. So there's such a big problem. And the pressure also around the protected the boundaries is so high. We have one of the towns that is really growing so fast. And in the west, like it is, so it's west of the park and has got like the Rwenzori Mountains, so that there's no expansion to the mountains. And then they have the park, so they're in between. And so the only pressure that they have is facing. And so with that, so the area I was talking about is, these are the Rwenzori Mountains, and it's a growing city that is really like, there's like a clear-cut boundary between the park and the town, and the different, communities that really have, the communities are growing around this place. So my study area would really, I want to look at this site and then this site. So I have two sites that I want to look at in this study. So I did a bit like of a quick situational analysis of what is on ground, of what's in the area. There are different NGOs, government programs that are ongoing, and they have different projects that are also being implemented. And I was just doing a quick survey of what is on the ground and what I would be interested in. So some of these projects I'll certainly, I'll certainly be able to sample and get details of what they're doing. Yes. So my research design, I will look at 3 districts that border the park. And from the districts, then I'll select sub-counties that border the park. And then villages that also border the park. So my activities really surround or are around communities that border protected areas, because this is where most of the livelihood projects are being implemented. And also my sampling methods, the random sampling methods and purposive sampling methods. Purposive because of the different key formats that I really want to interact with. So that's really key. And also, like in some areas where I really want to focus on who are these people that are implementing alternative livelihood projects. And I will use the Uganda household census data that is at district level, village level, to sample communities or people that I want to interact with. Then I also use a multi-case design approach. And this I want to, the different life, so when I conduct my survey, I'll sample a number of people from different, like the different sites that I'm working on, and concentrate on that, right? Study that deeper and look at what are they doing, and like offer a detailed questionnaire on what they're doing around livelihoods. Then the local communities, the external actors are looking at government agencies, local government, those are like district local government that work with conservation authorities. They have like departments. We have environment, like an environmental department, natural resource department in the district, and these interact with communities and conservation NGOs. Yes. So one of my objectives, as already presented, is to evaluate enabling conditions. And I have a question that I'm asking. What are the enabling and constraining factors that affect implementation and long-term sustainability of these alternative livelihoods in communities that are adjacent to protected areas. And I have an assumption that the success of different livelihood projects is really dependent on the available enabling conditions. And the methods that I will apply, and I mean this, like I keep revising this, it's a work in progress, mixed methods, and I will review documents, conduct surveys, key formats, focus group discussions, and also interest to use the spider configuration tool as a participatory research tool, which is visual. So what I have done under this particular objective is that I have inductively or read literature on the different conditions of alternative livelihoods, the different projects that have been implemented, and hypothesized like different conditions. And so some of these conditions, then I'll give them like a scale for people to be able to indicate whether this is, good, not good. So I have like a scale of like 1 to I don't want to start with 0, like 1 to 6. So giving it a weight of what the people think is more valuable on the different conditions that I have highlighted. And using this spiderweb configuration tool, it's like a visual presentation. It's like a visual tool for people to see what works better, and I'll be able to evaluate this. And so still that will still work as an analysis tool and be able to develop spider graphs. And also for some of these conditions that will be really qualitative, that I'll like interact with different key formats, then I will use thematic analysis. My second objective on assessing community and external perceptions of the neighboring conditions, I have questions: how do communities and external actors perceive neighboring conditions to sustain alternative livelihoods? I also, how do these perceptions vary across actors? And so I have a hypothesis that, there is a significant variations in perceptions between local communities and local actors regarding the prioritization of different employment conditions. And I still will use mixed methods, surveys, key formats, and focus group discussions. And because most of my data is really categorical, so I tend to use non-parametric tests in this. And for objective 3, and assessing community governance structures and system impact on alternative livelihoods around the park, I have 2 questions. What are the impacts of governance structure on participation and empowering community members? And then how do these external interventions influence paradigm dynamics in the communities in implementing alternative livelihoods? Still, I'll use surveys, key informants, and focus group discussions. And then I will use what they call the key methodology, where I'll have statements, different statements on governance, and I'll give them the different stakeholders different actors that I'll be interacting with to weigh them or be able to evaluate which of these statements really ranks high. And I'll certainly use the Q-sort data data analysis method. I'm still reading and studying about these methods. Yes. So then my research outcome, I hope that my research will inform practices and policies on enabling conditions and sustainability of livelihoods, what has really worked, what has not worked, what have been the underlying factors that have made it possible, not possible. Then contribute alternative literature to contribute to the existing literature on alternative livelihoods. When Roy and other researchers were doing their analysis on alternative livelihoods in 2015, obviously one of the really gap they found is that there's limited literature on alternative livelihoods, like evaluating these alternative livelihoods and assessing what has worked and what has not worked. So focusing on this helps us to contribute to the academic, alternatives work, or they are enabling conditions that really help these conditions to work. Then also, one of my interests also is to really help communities get organized to receive funds and limit the middleman. In this, what I mean, that my research outcome will be able to look at what are these, what communities value as issues around these protected areas. And the middlemen I mean is that these big organizations that, bring in a lot of money, but the communities get small amounts, just because the conditions are not assessed well to know whether the communities can manage to handle some of these projects or receive funds, the structure. So looking at the governance will also help to know are these communities really organized well enough to be able to implement some of these projects. Yes, thank you. Those are my advisors and committee members who are guiding me through this. And I appreciate them. I'm not yet there, but I hope that I'll be there.